And welcome to Friday, the end of the week, the end of the fourth week of Lent, moving into what used to be originally called Passion Sunday, which usually came before Palm Sunday, but then the two moved together. Today we continue to give God thanks for all that God has blessed us with. I must share that we had a wonderful week here at the college, and we were able to have some wonderful conversations with our friends from Mercer School of Theology, led by the Very Reverend Dr. Michael Sniffen and the rest of the team that were with him. It was truly an enjoyable opportunity for us to share as seminaries in the ideas that we are faced with as we seek to prepare persons for sacred ministry. So it was a great week, and I trust that you too had a wonderful week and that you are ready for the weekend as we continue to journey and seek God's presence with us. This morning I think I would like us to really reflect somewhat on our theme, living by the word that comes forth from God. And so as we come into this time of meditation, I invite us to really reflect on the week past, all that we have heard, all the thoughts that have arisen. But first we must bring ourselves into that space where we can allow for that reflection. And bring ourselves into our hearts and fill our hearts with gratitude as we breathe consciously into our heart space. As we set the intention to be present to God in these moments, as we set the intention to be open and receptive, breathing in and out with consciousness, remembering our intention to be with the divine for these moments. We ask that all that we might have carried unnecessarily during the course of this week, that in this moment be able to release it as we prepare for this weekend and a new week. We allow ourselves to expand into the presence of the divine and to know the God that has called us into being. We breathe with awareness. And with every breath in, we open ourselves to more of that continuous inflow of God's love and God's presence. And as we breathe out, we release all that no longer serves us, that which has been used up, and we let it go. so that we can make space for the new. The Jews then disputed among themselves, saying, "How can this man give us his flesh to eat?" So Jesus said to them, "Very truly I tell you, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in you. Those who eat my flesh and drink my blood have eternal life, and I will raise them up on the last day. For my flesh is true food, and my blood is true drink. Those who eat my flesh and drink my blood abide in me, and I in them. Just as the living Father sent me, and I live because of the Father, so whoever eats me will live because of me. This is the bread that came down from heaven, not like that which your ancestors ate, and they died. But the one who eats this bread will live forever." He said these things while he was teaching in the synagogue at Capernaum. Eating Jesus' flesh and drinking his blood. Jesus is the bread that comes down from heaven, the bread that gives life to the world. That becoming one with Christ, becoming one and feeding on him, feeding on his word, feeding on his example, feeding on his life. Allowing that life to be our life, allowing that way to be our way, allowing that path to be our path. It is a time for us to return to Jesus' words. Not what others have done with them, not what others have indicated about them, but Jesus' words themselves. To understand Jesus' invitation to follow the path that he has led. To follow where he has led the way and the example that he has given us in this world. An example of living in the presence of the divine. An example of truly understanding what it means to be a human person in this world. Jesus tells us through his period of ministry about the importance of not judging, the importance of forgiving, the importance of loving even the enemy. These are the things that matter, not what we have done with them, not how we have institutionalized them, but the things themselves. Love and forgiveness, mercy, justice, peace, forgiveness, kindness, generosity, patience. These are the qualities that Jesus demonstrated in the world, and he demonstrated that they are possible. And in demonstrating that they are possible, he invites us to follow his example, and to allow ourselves to have that opportunity to really be human beings. Jesus, in speaking of himself as bread, and in speaking of his blood as drink, Jesus is inviting us to consume him completely, to live off that which we receive from him. The life force that comes from consuming Jesus gives us life. And it bypasses this life because it is an eternal generation of sustenance. It is not that sustenance that we put in our mouths and then we release. No. It is that sustenance that once we imbibe it, it remains, it's timeless. It is eternal. So this week, we have been focusing on living by the word that comes out of the mouth of God. We've been living by that food that's eternal. That food that does not perish, but that food that stays with us through eternity. We may not always be able to live up to every aspect of it, but we have a sense of what it is. And we are invited time and again in scriptures to follow that path. So today, as we hear Jesus speak of himself as bread and drink, and as he invites us to feed on him, I want us to ponder this. To ponder what it means to imbibe the Christ presence. What it means to allow that Christ presence to be the fuel of our lives, so that time and time again we're able to receive it, knowing that it is like a fountain within us, welling up and flowing over. So let's not just bypass these words, but let's remember the call to that life of forgiveness, that life of non-judgment, that life of caring and supporting, of kindness, that life of being my brother's keeper, of looking out for each other, of building a community of love and peace. These are the things that Jesus showed us, and that Jesus invites us time and again to emulate. I pray as we bring this week to an end, I pray that somehow, some aspect of this invitation to live by that which comes forth from God would stay with us, in order that we may truly, truly be moved to action, not just to hearing the word, but to live in the word. So that whatever Spirit says to us in the moment, whatever rises up in our hearts, we are able to use that to bring forth something of worth in our world.
Star